Hey, it's Felicity. Welcome back to a couple of Aussie Acres. So today I wanted to talk a bit about homesteading and I guess just working with what you've got, more in relation to either small acreage or an urban block. I probably know a little bit less, to be honest, about growing things, you know, if you've got an apartment. So today I'm just going to talk mainly about working with an urban block and working with small acreage. There's so much potential in growing veggies and raising your own animals, and so we'll talk about both today a little bit. Plus, for my overseas viewers, I'm going to share some interesting facts, maybe interesting, I'm not sure, about Australia's land use and farming, so you can get an idea of how things work down here in comparison to where you guys are. Bless you. So in Australia, lifestyle properties or hobby farms, we kind of call them down here, tend to be considered under like 50 acres or under. Obviously there's plenty of opportunity on a small acreage, and I mean, I don't know, compared to what we've got here for three acres, 50 is a fair bit. Yeah, I think that we can do a lot with urban spaces, and I think I've said before in previous video that I actually still have the house that I was living in before I moved to the Adelaide Hills. We're going to have a lot of sheep bleating. They think I'm going to bring food. Here we go. Are you going to do that while I talk? I bet you won't. Yeah. So for my overseas viewers, in Australia, I think there's so I was having a look online, and there's apparently about 60,000 or so lifestyle properties. So that would be farms or acreage under 50. And that's really hard to talk. So these smaller properties actually take up about 20% of Australia's agricultural land, which is actually quite a bit. And so as far as agriculture goes here, in total it accounts for about 55% of Australia's land use. So it's pretty substantial. However, having said that, you know, often farms, particularly larger ones, need actually quite a bit of land to sustain whatever they're growing.
So Australia uses about 1 billion acres for farming, which is just mind-blowing. So it makes our little 3 acres seem ridiculously insignificant.
Those ones are my little they're my mini cauliflowers. Absolutely beautiful.
So while the average size of an Australian farm is almost 10,000 acres, their purpose is very different from ours. And so what's possible on a small plot of land is still significant. And even in urban areas, the potential is still very much there.
So in Australia, I think the largest farm, if we're talking big properties, is over 5 million acres or over 2 million hectares. I honestly can't even fathom that kind of acreage, particularly given we've only got 3. So, but you know, a lot of the land. So it's near Cooper Pedy, which is in South Australia, which is the state that I live in. But it's a very long way from here, and it's quite arid land. So in Australia, often those sorts of what we call stations are huge because, you know, they have cattle or whatever. I am not claiming to know anything about it other than, you know, it's big. That's it. I just wanted to give you that as a bit of an example of just how big you can get in Australia compared to my poultry, you know, 3 acres in the Adelaide Hills. The thing is, you don't have to have you don't have to have 5 million acres in order to be able to grow something. Broccoli doesn't really need that much land. So obviously on our property with 3 acres, we've got, we're still in progress. So while we've got we've got an orchard, it's small at the moment, but we're developing as over time. So there's fruit trees, and obviously we grow, a variety of vegetables. And obviously you can raise, a variety of animals on, smaller acreage. 3 acres compared to 50, that's a substantial difference. But for us, we've got chickens, we've got sheep. At the moment we have too many, got a cull a couple, because obviously there's just not enough feed on our property for that. We could do goats, which we're aiming for in the future. And actually pigs don't need a lot of space either. So there's still quite a bit of potential. What we can't do is have cows. The paddocks that we have, we've got 3 acres, but that's not paddock. So there's no way we could feed a herd of cows on 3 acres. They'd eat us out of house and home. So on 10 to 20 acres, you could scale up your production. We could do bigger veggie garden, more fruit trees. Obviously you could probably have, if you're looking at 20, you might be able to chuck on a cow or 2. Still, cows do need quite a bit of acreage, so there's still a little less potential there for that. But obviously again, you've got goats, you could do pigs. There's more, diversity as far as meat production and milk production goes. So I guess on those slightly bigger properties, we're looking at a bit more production. And then on, something like 50 acres, you're probably looking even into, you could sell, we're looking into farming and production rather than more self-sufficiency. Whereas we're interested in self-sufficiency. I don't know that, 50 acres, it would be pretty lovely, but it's not something that we need to have with what we're doing here. So sorry about the hat today. I was out in the garden last weekend and it was only like 17 degrees and I still burnt my nose. It is harsh out here. So I guess it begs the question then, well, what about an urban setting? So in Australia, we are actually one of the most urbanised countries in the world. So about 90% of Australians live in an urban centre. And Gary, get out of the creek. And I think that takes up about that takes up 0.22% of the country's land area. And it's mostly near the coast. That's phenomenal, actually. We live in such a small amount of space, given the fact that Australia is so huge. But part of that is because Australia is so arid. That might sound quite limiting, actually, given, it sounds like we're living on such small areas, but we're really not. My property, probably bigger than the average urban block now. What I grew up on was a larger block, and probably the same that what I've got in the town that I used to live in. That's 740 square metres. I don't know what that is in feet, sorry. But today's blocks probably closer to half that, maybe a bit more if you're lucky. But it doesn't mean you can't grow food and raise some animals in those spaces. And the fact is, I've certainly seen online what people are doing in urban areas. There's this really cool place in Vancouver that was doing sort of in more of an urban setting. I know a lot of cities are doing farming on rooftops, which I think is a really awesome idea. Certainly we get a lot of sun. I really do have to be careful at this point not to get my butt bitten by a snake. So in an urban setting, you really can make the most of what you've got. So for example, you could do container gardening. The fact is, we can do that anywhere, whether it's on a balcony, as long as you've got some sun. You can do it, obviously I do it here, and you can also do it in any setting really with container gardening. Vertical gardening, I'm actually going to, in a couple of videos, I've got a vertical sort of garden setup that I'm going to show you. I'll actually put that together in a few weeks and do a video on that. So I'm petting a dog. I know you can't see it except for maybe some little eyebrows or a head. Now, but you see, you've got the front and the back garden. It's interesting, I actually don't really see too many Australians utilising the front yard. But, you know, when I think of the block that I've got, I mean, obviously got a house on it. So just to give you, I guess, some perspective with the block that I had, or I have, but don't use. So with 740 square metres, the house itself was actually only 100 square metres, so it's really small. And so you think about it, that's still 640 square metres of land that's usable. And it's on a fairly flat block. So I could easily use, if I still had that, or if I was still living there, both the front and the back areas. And the production possibilities are actually pretty huge there. The other thing too, if we're talking animals, I mean, there is less opportunity in an urban setting, but clearly chickens you can still do. Quails, that's another one that people will do. Rabbits, while, you know, you might not be able to have goats, might not be able to have a rooster, certainly can't have cows, there's still opportunity to raise animals for eggs, meat if you wanted to. You know, unfortunately, I'm soft and I can't stomach the idea of, you know, raising chickens and quails and then eating them. Look, am I a true homesteader? Probably not. So I think that wherever you are, whatever setting, think about sunlight, how much sun you have on your property, wherever you are. Access to water, especially here in Australia, that's really important. We certainly don't get a lot of rain. So for example, so this year, it's been quite brutal actually. It's been pretty dry. And for the first time, I have spent hundreds, if not a few $1,000s on feed. So we've got, and I've shown you in earlier videos, we've got 2 paddocks, and I mean, admittedly, we should really only have about 3 sheep on our property, but we've got obviously 2 babies, but we've also got 2 other sheep that really need the chop. And so we've got 7 sheep at the moment. I mean, 2 are lambs, I don't eat quite as much, but still, that is double what we really should have. And one of our ewes is also pregnant, so there's just too many. And so I was feeding them weekly. And look, to give you an idea of cost, so I've had to buy feed again for some oat and hay, so bales of it, delivered, $22 a bale. You times that by 10, so I bought 10, it's $220. Lasts a couple of weeks. They're kind of big wasters too, is what I find. So that's about $110 a week. That is not sustainable. It's not economical. I think most farmers out there would say, get rid of them. To be honest, we do need to what's the word? I've got it. So we do need to harvest. Do you like that? We need to harvest 2 sheep. And we've got to do that soon. That is something to be mindful of with small acreage or in an urban setting. You know, do you have, you know, for chickens, for example, they do need greens. How are you going to get those? Are you going to let them loose on the lawn, or are you going to, you know, actually they do quite like broccoli and cauliflower leaves. So if you're growing those, you can certainly give them that. So I think in the end, it's really about some careful planning, getting to know your space and utilising it as best you can. And I think there's so much potential for, you know, in urban settings. Like, say, for example, community gardens, getting involved in that and growing things in that space as well. I've actually done a little bit of research on, I guess, the opinions of those that have looked into urban farming and whether that can actually be an answer to more sustainable farming, and whether it can feed, you know, people in an urban setting. And so far the opinion seems to be that we're not quite there, it's not really possible, but I think every little bit would help. And there's just so many benefits to growing your own veggies or to raising animals. cue the animals. It's a psychological benefit as well. It's a physical benefit, being outside, getting exercise. So I think, no matter what setting you're in, just making the most of the space that you have and having a great time doing it. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video somewhat helpful or mildly interesting. And if you did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you feel like it. If you don't, you don't have to. And for more tips in the future, and I'll certainly still focus on not just acreage, but also what you can do in an urban setting, some more tips on sustainability and growing food. If you're thinking of starting homesteading, in your space, I'd love to hear about what you're doing. So drop me a line. I'm always interested in what other people are doing and hearing about their adventures in homesteading. So until next time, happy homesteading, and I'll catch you on the next video.